Hey beautiful writers out there. Today let's talk about character setup. Setup in the way that we want to have multi-dimensional characters, because that's when we fall in love with a character the most, when we get the sense that there is more to a character than meets the eye. But how can you set up such a character in a meaningful way? And is there even a secret in creating such characters? Let's find out in this video. Okay guys, so character setup. At first, we need to understand why it is that sometimes we attach to a character more than other times. Just, check out your recent movie experience that you had. Ask yourself whether you felt, really engaged to that character or not. And then sort of reverse engineer the whole movie in the back of your mind and try to find out at which point you felt hooked the most to that character's journey, or if it was a negative experience, when it went south. Try to understand where there was a turning point. At which moment exactly did you feel for the character, or they lost you altogether? This will be the first step in you understanding how to set up characters. It's more than just, the saving cat moment that we all come to love and that we all come to know. In terms of character setup, there is even more to it that makes a character a complex character. So first off, there's this element of, surprise that is crucial to anything character related. Surprise is not only an element you can use in making your plot more interesting and create plot twists. It also comes in handy when setting up a character, because the element of surprise is really what deepens the characters the most. If you meet someone, and if you meet that person for the first time, there's definitely what we all call a first impression. So that is the outward appearance. And just by looking at this person, you will kind of make up your mind to a certain degree. We tend to think in categories. There is really nothing wrong with it unless you take a look beyond the first impression. And that's exactly what you need to be doing with your characters you're setting up as well. Because what happens is you present a character in a certain way when the reader first gets introduced to that character. This very first moment will create a kind of impression in the reader. The trick now is, or your job as a writer now is, that you mislead the reader by tricking him to believe that this first impression is all there is to it, to that character. But later on, you kind of contradict and surprise the reader by presenting a different aspect to this personality or to this character. So the element of surprise is really what's key here. You mislead by presenting a first impression, what makes people judge about the character very fast. So for example, if you have a cop, there is already a pre-notion to how a cop should be and how a cop should act. But then you go ahead and you contradict this notion by adding an element of surprise to the whole thing. Like, what if this cop, who is, earnest and who is driven by rules and who is really obeying rules and making sure others obey these rules, what if this character does something that really surprises you? What if we are about to find out that this cop, this earnest cop, is really the kid of one of the most, cruel and dangerous mafia bosses out there? This will definitely be a game changer. And we will then not only be surprised as hell to learn this about this character, we also will feel that this character becomes more complex to us. Because we're not only getting the information that our first impression is wrong, we also, get a sense of what this inner wound of this character is and what he is probably trying to deal with. So the way to look at the character setup is, for one, look for surprises. What element of surprise can you add to the character? The way to look for these surprises is to think of what is the inner struggle of this character. What's the need of the character? Because if you know the need, it's more easy to add, contradicting elements. So for instance, coming back to, the cops, he wants to grow out of this thug life and he wants to be, earnest. But he can very well, struggle being earnest, because that is not what he grew up on. So he will probably take measures that are more, criminal driven than he wants to admit. And this again will highlight his inner struggle even more, and it will engage us to this character way more. It's like pulling at a rope from two different sides and really stretching it to a degree that it might just, rip. And that's exactly how you should look at character setting. There's also, this behavioral element to a character. The way you look at it is a character is defined by the choices that he or she makes. Therefore, these choices can be, contradictory. For example, we as human beings, we have so much contradiction going on within us. We have made decisions that are good, and we have made decisions that weren't as good. And this is exactly how your character on screen or on the page should behave as well. 1 minute, this character is super brave. The next minute, when it comes to the next decision, this character will probably be, the worst coward in the history of mankind. If you show us that this behavior is kind of justified in the sense of that we understand why the person is doing what he or she is doing, and then the contradiction will feel real and will add to the character in terms of it will make him richer and more deep. Because that's how we really, struggle in our lives as well. We make contradictory decisions all the time. So an example for this would be that if a mother is lying to her son, about the domestic violence that's really going on in their household, in order to protect the kids, the lying part of it will be pretty bad, and the contradictory element will then be that this mother lies to the kid because she wants to make sure this kid is safe, which is then, a good part. And it's happening, all at once. But we get it because we understand, okay, this mother will take care of the kid no matter what. Let's look at some examples. The first impression is very important. We always, almost always judge a book by its cover at first sight. You have this accountant. Accountant is not a very interesting person when you first, meet this person. Probably be very introverted and very silent and calm, and there's not much, to it. At first sight, it is. It turns out that he is running his own jazz club. This way, this person would be a hell of a lot more interesting than just, being an accountant. So everything that contradicts the first impression is always a place to look for. But again, it has to make sense and it has to reflect upon the wound of this character. Another example is you have the daughter of a policeman who is very upright, and she deals not in drugs, but fake concert tickets, it will not only deepen her character, it will also lead to consequences that reflect back upon, her life and, the interaction with her father, who's being a policeman. So you tap into a well of consequences that will most likely lead to actions and to more twists, and it will, make this character rich and intense, and simply this character will become multi-dimensional. And one last thing to remember: do not let your character just make good decisions. Let him make bad decisions as well. That's really at the core of it what matters. We don't want to see, and we cannot stand, someone who does make the right decisions every time. This is not only boring, this is very much not life. Okay guys, that's it for today. Make sure you like and subscribe and all this good stuff. Take care guys, listen to yourself more, help others out. Let's, make this world a better world and create more meaning and film. Right on guys.